Oh.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, Super Tuesday.
welcome back, Cotter.
Thank you. Is that Connor?
Cotter.
What's that?
Oh, you weren't born? Welcome back, Cotter.
Calling this meeting to order. Welcome to the
TV series.
City Council, Oroville City Council meeting of March 3rd, 2020. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll?
Councilmember Pittman? Here. Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Draper? Here. Councilmember Hatley? Here. Councilmember Goodson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Thompson? Here. And Mayor Reynolds.
Here.
Oops.
Okay, there will be no closed session tonight, so moving on to open session. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge.
Flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion carries.
Moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have one presentation today for the City of Oroville Arbor Day proclamation. Is there someone here to accept this? Okay, on behalf of the City of Oroville, Arbor Day has been observed throughout the nation and the world for 148 years. Whereas arbor was derived from the Latin word for tree, and Arbor Day was conceived by newspaper editor and politician J. Sterling Morton, who proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas in 1872, this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas in 1909, California designated March 7th as the beginning of the Arbor Day celebration to commemorate Luther Burbank's birthday, the great California botanist who was born on March 7th, 1849. California observes Arbor Day concurrently with Conservation Week from March 7th through March 14th. Whereas trees are not just a source of beautification for our neighborhoods and parks, they can also reduce erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, provide habitat for wildlife, and trees are a valuable, renewable resource. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and can be a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Whereas this is the 40th year that the City of Oroville has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and the city desires to continue its tree planting program. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Reynolds, Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with the Oroville City Council, hereby proclaim March 7th, 2020 through March 14th, 2020 as the observance of the Arbor Day celebration in the City of Oroville, and urge all citizens to plant, care for, and preserve trees throughout our community to enhance the spirit and well-being for our present and future generations.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, while you're making your way back up here, I just want to point out that on the 14th of March at Bicentennial Park, we'll be having an Arbor Day Festival. So I think I think the city's going to be planting a tree, and there's going to be a lot of celebration going on. So if you have time, March 14th, right here, just across the way, Bicentennial Park, also known as BCOE's grounds, Butte County Office of Education.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public communications and hearing of non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have one speaker for non-agenda items, the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. I'd just like to say tonight, first off, thank you for approving the agenda back in December, allowing free museum admission day for the February 29th for March 1st. I must say, it was quite a fun experience. I went to view some of our lovely locations here in Oroville, such as the Bath House and my personal favorite, the Chinese Temple. Not many people follow their zodiacs and care about that stuff, but I thought it was a very interesting and informative experience. I've never been in a temple or a bathhouse. I've heard them joked about a lot, but I've never been in one. And it's really more of a shower house than it is a bathhouse. But it was interesting to find out that there was once a ferry before the bridge, and people would come down to the sandy bays of the Feather River, and they needed this, as I was told, well, when they get sandy, you can't go back into town looking like that. So they needed a shower to facilitate their needs of being clean after a day at the sandbar, if you will. Also, just like to mention, there was an arson that was committed at Bedrock Park. I don't know if many people are aware, but the bathrooms were torched. I spoke to the fire department. They told me they did not find any accelerants at this time, but it has been ruled as an arson because there's no electrical there, from what I was told, and there was no lightning that night. So somebody decided to take upon themselves and set the bathroom on fire, whether it be intentionally or accidentally. It's a real shame because it's very hard to find public restrooms, especially in Oroville. And nowadays, because of homeless people, restaurants and other facilities want you to put a quarter in or get a token. So public restrooms are quite a necessity, and it's a shame to see one so blatantly disregarded and destroyed. And finally, I'm not going to have enough time to be here tonight to talk about the council maps, but all I'm just going to say is it's going to happen. Whatever district you get assigned to, prepare to have that used as a weapon potentially against you for not minding your own business in your own district, if you will. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is the only speaker card I have for that item.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. At this time, we're going to open this up for public hearing. Number 10, public hearing community development block grant for fiscal year 2019-20.
Mayor Reynolds and council members, my name is Amy Bergstrand, and I am management analyst with the City of Oroville. Tonight, we're here to talk about the public hearing for the fiscal year 2019-20 CDBG allocation, and also to solicit comments from the public. The State Department Housing and Community Development announced in January 21st of 2020 that the 2019 and 2020 Notice of Funding Availability was released with approximately $60 million. $30 million of that was from the 2019 allocation, and $30 million was from 2020 allocation. This NOFA was a 2-year collaboration with the department, CDBG stakeholders, and also HUD. And there are 2 significant changes to this NOFA. One is that they have added an over-the-counter process for all capital projects, construction projects. And the other is that all applications reporting are going to be submitted through eCivis, which is a grant management system. So that's a new thing for us. All applications and activities have to meet one of the 3 national objectives. The first one is to benefit low and moderate income persons, which are LMI, to aid in the prevention of an elimination of slum and blight, and also to meet urgent need. Although this year they have stated that urgent need is not going to be one that they're going to allow. The maximum total grant award for the community development per jurisdiction is $3.5 million. This does not include any program income that the city may have coming in. Each jurisdiction can submit one application per activity. In the past, we were able to submit combo applications, and that they are no longer. So every single activity is a separate application that will have a standalone budget and scope of work. Again, each jurisdiction can do 6 applications, and the different types of activities are housing, non-housing, community development, and economic development. Under housing, you can do single-family rehabilitation with a maximum limit of $100,000 or $1 million. Homeownership assistance is $1 million, and those are both competitive grants. Housing projects for multifamily rentals and acquisition of real property and public improvements in support of housing, or OTC. That is another change that they've made because they're over the counter. Their due dates are at different times. So currently, the application process is open. We can be submitting it right now. But for the competitive grants, April 15th is the date that they all have to be submitted by, and they're going to be ranked against each other. The OTC's final date is in September 30th, and those are on a first-come, first basis if your project is eligible and you have met all of the requirements. Non-housing community development activities include public improvements other than in support of housing and businesses, and that's up to $3.5 million. Public facilities, up to $3.5 million. Project pre-development, which is a limit of 2 grant awards of $500,000. Public services, up to $500,000, and planning technical assistance that are $250,000. Only the project pre-development and public service and planning are competitive, and those are due in April, but the constructions are OTC, and they're due by September. And then there's economic development, which the grant awards are up to $6 million, and those include small business loans, which are $750 each, activity and micro enterprise, which is $500. The remainder are the OTCs, which are up to $6 million. So there's a lot of different things here, and I would like to open it up for public comment.
Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker, Anastasia Snyder.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for allowing for public comment or providing a space for public comment. My name is Anastasia Snyder. I'm the Executive Director at Catalyst Domestic Violence Services. It's nice to see many of you. You are longtime partners of our organization. I just want to express some of our experiences with these CDBG funds and how much that they've had an impact. Currently, as you know, we receive CDBG funds to provide core services in our at our Oroville location on the levee, and those core services include anything from drop-in services, crisis counseling, therapeutic counseling, as well as assistance with restraining orders, to name a few. These are critical funds for the Oroville community, and specifically for one of the most vulnerable populations, victims of domestic violence and their children. And we've leveraged these funds, and that's what I really want to express to you, how we've been able to leverage the pot of money you gave us to expand those services. We were able to, we received state funds for a law enforcement advocate who works very closely with Oroville Police Department and has just, as of January 1, started actually 9 to 5 in-field response when called by an officer. We've received combined state and federal funds for a South County housing advocate who works with victims to find their own safe housing, critically important because, as you are well aware, there is a direct through line with domestic violence to homelessness, and especially among women. We're currently waiting to hear on an outcome of an application that we submitted through HUD that would allow us to rent a small housing complex or house to provide safe housing for residents here in South County. And so that would expand a program that we're already doing in North County. All of this we were able to accomplish because we've built such a great base of support through the funds, through the CDBG program. And with that, I'll answer any questions or thank you again.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. You mentioned housing. And so we understand that component, that population that you serve. Are you making reference to a safe house?
No. So currently, to provide some context, currently we are actually providing housing and housing support and supportive services through a HUD grant, through a COC grant that allows us to do scattered sites. So for example, we have we have a handful of people that we're working who are housed in an apartment over here, an apartment over there, an apartment over there. The funds that we're awaiting word on would be essentially we would hold a master lease on that project, and we have a similar program in Oroville, in North County, where we rent a house or a small duplex or a small fourplex, that would be ideal, and then we rent to and provide support services to a survivor of intimate partner violence. It's not emergency confidential shelter. That is an entirely different model. That is, we have one of those, as you are well aware. We really don't need more we need more housing, as I know you know, as many of you know. We need more housing, but emergency housing model that we already are running in the city of Chico, we don't need more of that. What we need are the more scattered sites, the more individual apartments, the more duplexes, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Great.
Councilmember Pittman, did you have a question?
I did.
I'm sorry.
Just in a general sense, the population quantity that you're serving in South County, just to give us, so the council has an idea, just, are we talking tens,
Sure.
20s, hundreds, what?
I would say we're in the hundreds, and I would like to be more specific, and I can email that information,
great.
some data to you,
Just
to the council in the next couple of days.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just for clarity on what we're doing here tonight. Tonight, we're going to have the public hearing, hear from the public of those that may be interested in this, applying for this. After this public hearing, what we're going to do is open up an application process, which Amy's crew will put online and be available here at City Hall. By the 17th, that application date will close. Once that's done, staff will evaluate the applications and come back to the council for a resolution on the first meeting in April. So tonight is just to make the public aware, hear any interest, and then after that, we're going to have a 14-day application period, and then we will bring it back to you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any more speakers?
Mr. Mayor, that was the only speaker I had on that item.
Okay, so was this for informational only? Bill?
It was to inform the council and have the public hearing and hear from the public, so we have accomplished all of those goals.
Okay, great, thank you. Did you wish to say something?
Yes, I have a
Councilmember Goodson?
Thank you. I have a question for Amy. Hi, Amy. Thank you for the presentation. During the first part, in regards to the grants, can vary based on annual allocation and activity limits. So here's my question in regards to the third line item. Could you please qualify the disqualification of the original objective, which was to meet an urgent need? Why was that eradicated?
They did not specify that. It was not specified in the NOFA through HCD. I think because it's a difficult process to put into the new system, but I don't have an absolute answer for you on that. I can find out. I can try to find out for you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 11.
Mr. Mayor, if it would be at all possible and the council would indulge, could we skip to item number 13 and take care of that piece of business and then come back to 11?
Okay, skipping to item number 13. Track it? Track it upgrade?
Yes, sir.
I do not have a presentation for this one. So if you guys have any questions on it, I'd be willing to answer them.
Okay,
Well, what this system is, Mr. Mayor, is it's the electronic system and the permit and tracking system that we use for our community development department and building department. This is an upgrade to the system that we currently have, which is going to provide us with a forward or outward-facing component to it, so that the public can interact with the city hall on the internet, essentially. There will be a certain number of things that can be done online. It will allow us to better track and facilitate the needs of the community through this electronic software. Mr. Party, you would have to correct me if I'm incorrect. We're also going to be going to, I believe, a cloud-based system so that we aren't in the back room storing as much data as we previously had. This also comes with the annual cost to it for the updating and the subscription to that. It's very similar to the CAD system that we use and the RMS system that we use in the police department that has that annual charge. I think Mr. DiPaolo has some that he would like to add to it.
Yeah, and clarify a little bit. Currently, we have an older version of Track It. We house it in the house, meaning we have to keep up with all the technology and all the upgrades one at a time in-house. This will go to 100% off-site hosted cloud-based system. So part of what we do in our subscription is they will take care of all our updates automatically off-site. It helps us with not needing as much technical help ongoing, so it relieves some of the burden of the human resource on site as well. Additionally, it takes care of some of the more menial tasks that we do, like business licenses, for example, which for 3 or 4 months a year take up a drastic amount of time for the people up front in City Hall. And that can be done online. 95% of the business license will be able to be achieved online because we're putting a pay point online as well. So they'll be able to go online. They fill out an application online. They'll answer some questions. Some will get kicked out based on those questions. They'll have to come in, but the vast majority will be able to handle online. They'll be able to pay for them and print their business license right there. They won't even have to come down to City Hall for that. Huge savings in labor there. Additionally, it's going to allow for people to be able to track online when they submit a permit. They'll be able to go and check the status of that. And we're also currently can't do online offerings, meaning if someone wants to do most of the single trade type of stuff, a service change out, a water heater, a furnace, they'll be able to now get those permits online as well. So it cuts down on the traffic in the office. It allows for those simpler ones to be done online. The cost up front, we have the money in the fund, but the cost up front is $97,000. That includes the first year of hosting as well. And then from there on, it's about $39,000 a year ongoing host, but that's also all the upgrades and off-site hosting and work that gets done off-site. So it's I believe it's very well spent.
And just so you know where your money goes, this is also your data migration from your old system to your new system. It's everything you need for a turnkey operation for this. It also includes a training component for our staff so that we know how to totally take advantage of the new program that's been provided to us. And what it does is it essentially brings your city building department and community development and land management programs into a modern era, whereas before, we're probably one of the only agencies around that has no online offerings.
Thank you. We have some questions from the dais. Councilmember Goodson.
I just want to say for the record, this is my fourth year on council, and it just seems like every year we have the subject of our software, our system is old and it needs upgrades. I guess it's kind of, we can look at it like a phone. When you buy a new phone within a month, that's out of date and a new one has come out. So that's how I'm going to look at the upgrade. But I have a question in regards to the maintenance and the ongoing yearly license. Is that a typo, or is it actually $39,000 a year for maintenance?
So that is the correct number, is 39,000. But again, what that's getting you is an infrastructure in the cloud. And an upgrade like this should never have to happen again, because every update that they come out with from this point forward, we get. So all the advancement of technologies, because it's in their hosted environment and they can take care of it, will just continue to be upgraded over time.
Included with that 36,000?
Yes.
39.
39.
39.
Are you
Yeah.
finished?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Pittman.
Can I just jump in real quick, just to ask Tyson one follow-up question is, when was the last time that, or how old is the Track It system that we're currently using? Because that is a legitimate question. Is it just this year's latest and greatest version?
Right,
Or-
no, the 2011 is when we did the last upgrade. And so it's been around a while and working.
Have we not tweaked that since then or added a component?
Uh,
I recall visiting this last year.
I don't know if Track It was the one that we had done last year. Laserfish was another product that we used that I
Okay.
believe is what got brought last year. But this one, we haven't, from a upgrade, like purchasing and some kind of module, we haven't had to do that. We bought everything up front, but we've done a lot to it. In here was the GIS. You know, we actually took a step back. GIS had some missing information that Track It had. So we've actually backed all that information up to GIS. And then Track It can use it, but also we're using some of the information for the police department and some of the other departments with other applications. So we've really tried to maximize the information that comes through Track It to go back to other applications as well.
And Councilperson
Thank
Goodson,
you.
I think the software that we're probably
That
all
we
thinking
were
of, took me a
thinking of.
minute to think of, was Central Square, which was the financial software, where we
Okay.
replaced the old
I
financial
knew
one.
it was something.
Yeah.
All right, thank you
Right.
for clarification. Appreciate that.
You mind if I say one more thing? On that note as well, what this also brings in is a connector. So right now, Track It is its own, so we take in money through Track It, and there's a manual process that goes into taking it to the financial system. This will have the means to be able to move that information directly into the financial system. We're not quite there. We're doing an upgrade right now, but when that upgrade is done, there will be some seamless moving of data.
Thank you. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, you kind of started on the question I was going to ask is, how well is this going to integrate all the departments in the city? I know Track It goes all the way back into the early 2099 era, and that was pretty much a program just for building department. But
Right.
what I'm hearing now, you talk and Leo talk, that basically we're integrating all the departments in the city to be able to use and function as a kind of centralized database and facilitize, staff in the field. And I know I heard one time I think the fire department can actually do a lot of weed abatement inspections through this.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know of a department, maybe Public Works, just the guys that are actually out in the field that are not using this application. We've really tried to maximize what it can do. And so you got permitting, planning, code enforcement, and building licenses, all of they're all tied into this one application.
That's good. Thank you. Nice to hear.
Councilmember Smith.
Tyson, yeah. So that $39,000 annual cost caught my attention, but drilling down into it, the piece that I really like, and you've already spoken to it, is the customer service dynamic, which every citizen in Oroville that interacts with the city, they're going to feel in real time the
Right.
difference in paying their fees or getting things through planning and whatnot. So I just think that's thumbs up to those efforts, because I think anytime that the citizens, the constituents feel the impacts, it's costly, but like you say, the cloud-based system, it's
Right.
gonna, from here on forward, if it performs as promised.
Right.
And I know Ruthie liked it too, so that's always a good thing. That means that there's a seamlessness between, receiving funds for, projects that people have, paying their business license, and then moving right through the system in a seamless way. I think that's amazing, because we're gonna be so busy that we're gonna need it. And that was the other piece. I thought, well, is it warranted? But definitely things have turned the corner, and so good job. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that if they wish to speak on an item, they need to fill out a blue card before we get to that item. The red over there. Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you.
So, looking for a motion to authorize the upgrade of Track It in the amount of $97,220.
I make a motion that we accept the upgrade as agenda-sized.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Mr. Silva, did you wish to address this council before we get into this next item? Because we might be a little while on this next one.
We're just here to answer the questions.
Okay. Okay, so you're fine. All right, thank you. Okay, back into public hearing. Open this up for public hearing for item number 11. It's the third public hearing to receive public input on and provide input regarding the composition of potential council member election district boundaries.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you very much for having us here. We, as you know, have posted a couple of drafts. There's, can't hear? I'm sorry, let's see. Try to do this. Now you can hear me? Yes, okay, one more time. Good evening. So we are here this evening to present the drafts to you if you would like to see them. There's two drafts that were posted on February 18th in accordance with the California Voting Rights Act on your website. These drafts were developed based on public input that we received. These are just drafts. They and my colleague Tamina, who's sitting next to me, can walk you through each of the drafts. What you can do tonight, if you wish, is take a look at the drafts and then make modifications to them. So what we can do here with the software is we can zoom in on every district on whatever draft you choose to look at first. We can look at the boundaries. We can look at the underlying population data and the streets where the boundaries are. And then we can try to modify these districts so that we can get to something that is perhaps a little bit more palatable than what is on the screen right now. So again, these are drafts and there's nothing set in stone. We have since also received 3, I believe, public participation maps that are also on the website now. And these are just, again, public input. They're not drafts, but we've made them available. And if the council would like to see those, we can walk you through them also. So you can take a look and see what people have since.
I think we'd like to see them in order, please.
Okay, so would you like to start with the drafts then? And then Tamina can go through the various individual districts on draft 1, perhaps?
Yes.
Please, go ahead, please.
And can you also explain what the percentages are?
Absolutely.
The variables, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So the percentages that are on the map are the percent deviation. So remember, we had to have an ideal population. And so what you're seeing on, District 1B, for example, it says negative 3.08, I think. I'm not. Yeah, 3.08%. That means that you're 3.8% below the ideal population, so that in theory, if that district were drawn okay, then that would be an okay district, because we're trying to be within plus or minus 5%. Okay, so I will hand it over to Tamina, and we'll start with draft number 1. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. So I'm going to be presenting to you both draft 1 and 2, which were submitted and which are currently up on your website. There are 4 public participation maps or portions of maps which were submitted as public comment, which I can also bring up if you'd like. But I'll tell you a little bit about drafts 1 and 2 and where they came from first. I can also zoom into any of these. I know you can't see the streets too well until you really get in there. So if you'd like to look up and say, I want to see what's going on between the yellow and green district, then I'm happy to bring you up closer to those. A little bit about draft map 1, which is the one that you're looking at right now. It was submitted by public comment. By draft map, public map that was submitted, and it incorporates 2 communities of interest which were submitted and which were spoken about at the last public hearing
So the first one that it incorporates is called Eastern Edge, and it's this area here in District 1D that's highlighted in red. And the second community of interest is what was called East Side, which is up here in 1C, highlighted currently in green. So this map was taken, there was public participation map number 1, which was submitted. This draft map was created by taking the spirit of that map and balancing the population so that each district would be plus or minus 5%.
That's what I thought.
Does council want to look at any other, zoom up on any of these parts, or would you like to look at number 2?
And
I think council's been looking at them for a while. Councilmember Smith would like to comment.
Yeah, you just said special interest in those two different districts. Could you just share what that is for everyone?
Sure. They were community of interest testimony, which was given at a previous city council meeting. So
what is that specific interest?
And who gave it? I'm not sure what you're referring to.
It was a gentleman who came up, and I can look for the name of him, who came up and gave boundaries of that particular area. It was the same person who submitted the map, but he spoke about those particular areas, and we just digitized them so that you could see them.
Okay.
also, I'd like to add that when we start drawing around a particular district, or when a map is submitted that has certain cores of districts together, but then we have to balance for population, all kinds of things can happen. And in particular, when you have rather small districts, so just even one census block that has a lot of population in there can really throw your populations off, and all of a sudden you have really big deviations.
Okay. I'd like to say something before we go any farther. I want to make sure that everyone's clear on why we're here with this agendized item. This is for districting maps, and I think that there might be some people that are interested in annexation that they might have heard about, and that is not on the agenda tonight. It's just a conversation right now, so I wouldn't want to waste anyone's time. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone will be notified. Absolutely.
It's on the agenda online. It's on line number 14.
Bill?
For clarity, what we're going to be talking about tonight is just how and if we proceed forward, what the direction of the council will be. Tonight, we are not annexing anybody. We're not taking any steps to initiate any sort of annexation. The item tonight that we're looking for is looking at what is the wishes of the council as far as an annexation, and authorization to have public meetings to get also the public's input, is what is the public interested in for annexation. So we are not initiating an annexation process tonight. We are not doing anything really that is going to annex the Thermalito area or any of the other areas. Some of the things that we're doing where we look at our municipal services review and things like that are things that we must do as part of our general plan as we increase our sphere of influence, or our sphere of influence. But it is not the actual process to begin any sort of an annexation. It's just regular business that the city has to do every so often. There is an area in the Thermalito area where the property owners have came to the city and asked to be annexed. So that is what is initiating the sphere of influence and the general plan amendment and the municipal services review. So
before anything's put in writing, you'll be contacting us with some type of letter.
yes, sir. We'll be having a public input meeting. We'll be engaging the public to find out what is your input, what is your desire. I mean, we are going to be engaging on it. We are not going to annex you tonight or anything like that.
Any kind of vote or anything tonight?
We are not taking any vote to annex you tonight.
Can you tell us the area that these people are talking about?
Look at the map on the wall over here. It would be down in the Four Bay area.
Or maybe after.
After Bay, I'm sorry. I always get them mixed up. Yes, the light purple area.
Before anybody's annexed in, they have to be notified and given,
You gotta let all the
yes.
other people know.
So, yeah, so that's, that, yeah, legally, the city has to go through that process.
You're talking about a process that'd be well over a year long, so it's not, it's just a conversation right now. But I thought that, because I recognize some people here that live in the area that is potential for annexation, so that's why I brought it up. I didn't want you sitting here wasting your time for 2 hours listening to this other stuff.
That's kind of a leapfrog in the town if you're out there.
No, it'll all be connected. Yeah, but that's not what's on the agenda, so we're gonna go back to our regular agenda.
You sure let us know.
Yes, sir, we will.
I have a question on
We can't hear,
Yeah.
we can't hear you.
Can I ask a question real quick before she changes maps? The green along what I know as the Feather River, is that line the Feather River, or is it downtown Montgomery Street?
Feather River.
It's a river, yeah.
Move down a little closer.
Sorry, wasn't on. No, this is not a street, so this would be the river right here.
Go up a little bit.
Oh,
Up. Okay. So, because that particular green district, one of the goals I had was to make it clear and simple to the public to understand. And if you bring us up a little higher, no, the other way. I want that line here, so basically it's along the river and not any part of downtown other than that little leg that you've got there coming up out of the river onto, was it Safford? Yeah, a little farther to the
Close to
right.
the purple.
Yeah, close to the purple. There's a green box there. And so that grabs a certain population down. So I'm trying to envision that everybody on this side of the river is in one district, and it looks like we've got a little thumb there that's on the downtown portion on this side of the river. So, was that done to grab some population or something, or?
It could be the, and we'll be happy to move these around. We can
Well,
do
I
that
just-
in just a minute, but I believe that that's the shape of the census block, which is connecting these
Okay.
two portions.
All right, thank you. That answers that question. I got you.
And Councilmember Smith, just to answer your question, the gentleman who submitted the comment on those two communities was Mr. M. Brown.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was more interested in what the interests were, what he felt those areas.
I can tell you, I have that.
Those areas would have commonality.
yeah.
If it's not readily available,
So, yeah, it says, historically, these areas were incorporated into the city after 1970. Mutual economic concerns of property valuation and insurance, mutual wildland fire safety concerns, highest fuel loading adjacent the city, rural foothill national features, foothill pine belt, shared dry creek watershed, closest to lake and national forest, and relative low demand for public safety response.
Mr. Brown's thorough. I pretty much agree with all that. Very good.
We remember.
Are there any other questions on map 1? Can we see the next map, please?
Okay, moving on, this is map 2. Created virtually the same way that map 1 was created. We got public participation map 2 and took the spirit of that map and balanced the populations to be plus or minus that 5% deviation.
Are there any questions on this map?
Happy to zoom in any areas you like.
Are there any questions from the public or any comments?
Could you zoom in on the South Side Community Center?
Do you know where that
Would you let
is?
me know where that is?
Right.
Other way, other direction.
Opposite direction, it minimized the map so we can.
Is it up in yellow or
No.
So in the purple,
orange and
you
purple?
have
Right
your
there.
Olive High,
Yeah.
right, Olive Highway, Oro Dam. And it's Lower Wyandotte Road.
So Orodam is here and
You want
Olive
to
Highway?
keep going, right there, Lower Wyandotte.
Okay.
There's a power line feature that would, if it were used as a line, would include the Southside Community Center in that district.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker for this item, and then I don't have any other blue speaker cards if we want to
Okay,
allow. Do you want to do that?
yes.
Okay. Michael Brown?
We remember.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds, council members. I'm M. Brown. So if you had questions about my submittal, great. I just submitted it based on growing up here. If you looked at the center of that map that I originally submitted, it'd probably be in the Feather Plunge swimming pool. That's where everybody met when I was a kid. So I grew up here, the town grew up around me. Now I happen to live in the Pierpont Westell neighborhood, but I've had either jobs or relatives, or I myself have lived in each of the proposed districts. Sure, I've lived in each, or worked, or had family members in each of the proposed districts. I feel like I know the community, so I just did it based on my own history, not knowing how much participation you would get. I don't mind if you part it out, but at least you got some input to begin with. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And I did think it important to include the Southside Community Center in what I labeled E. So I chose the power line. Because you can use power lines as well as rivers and drainages and ridge tops. And there's a lot you can do. However, whatever you do is going to change in the future.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get too hung up on the minutia of it. Just try and get a flavor of what you think are the neighborhoods. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Mr. Brown must either be an architect or an engineer. I didn't put-
Firefighter.
That's better. That's better than either. About the same.
And to that point that you were making about it's going to change, that's one of the pieces I think that's really important as we move along, to bear in mind where the growth has been, because that plus and minus 5% is very critical. So as close to dead zero as we can get, and or where the minuses would be, if you will, in the areas where we've had the most growth, so that balances out. So we have the least impacts in the 2020 census, so that individuals that may in the future want to run for city council, they kind of know what or who they're up against. Or and for those of us that are currently in city council, we kind of know where we might remain. I just think that would be helpful. Just kind of thinking out. I'm a out ahead thinker, and so I just want to just bear that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this map? Can we see the next map, please? Now, are we getting into the public presentation?
Yes, so these were the two maps that were submitted, public presentation that were submitted, that we were able to create maps from within the deadline amount of time, draft maps, I'm sorry. I will now walk you through just the maps as they were submitted, even though they are not balanced.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
We've got 5 maps up here. Which one is that? It's not labeled.
This is two. District 2.
Public
Draft 2.
participation map 2.
This
No,
is draft 2.
This is the draft.
Yes.
This is from the demographer.
Till now, we've only been looking at the draft map, so just draft 1 and draft 2.
Thank you.
Moving on to map 1 of publicly presented maps.
This is participation map 1.
So you see that these, the percentages are quite large. The deviations are quite large. And again, we did some work on drafts 1 and 2, but these were just recently submitted. So, not knowing what your direction is, we have not worked on those. If you'd like to take a look at some of them, and maybe there are some features of some of these maps that you really like, we could take one of the drafts and then perhaps try to incorporate what you like from these from this public input.
Karen, could you explain to the council what the hazard would be to adapt or adopt a map such as this with such huge deviations?
Well, this map would defeat the purpose because somebody would sue you for malapportionment. Because under our first criteria on equal populations, we have to be roughly within plus minus 5%, you know. At this point, when you're looking at a map like that, you'll see that, for example, let's say District B, which is 27.65% over the ideal population, would in effect get less representation than District F, which is below because there's fewer people in there. So basically, if they have their own council member, there's fewer people per council member, and they essentially get more representation. So that's kind of the idea of this whole thing. So this isn't something that you can really legally adopt.
Okay, great. So are there any questions, other questions on this map? Councilmember Goodson, did you?
Of this map.
Of map number 1 of public participation.
So would you say that we're going to reject this map?
So what we did with public, we're just showing you what different maps were submitted by the public, which testimony was submitted by the public, or which paper maps were submitted. Draft map 1 took this map and balanced out the population, essentially, took the spirit of this map. So we took what was the public participation of the communities and did the best we could to keep those, is what that is. So while, if you'd like, we could visit this map again and move some things around to rebalance. Draft map 1 is an example of what that would look like, could look like.
Yeah, and also, please remember that your ideal population is pretty small. It's 3,121. Okay, so even just 1 or 2 large blocks with lots of population can basically get you back into your ideal population. So look at these maps as, did we get the general architecture of the districts right? Is this something that even remotely makes sense? Is this something that could be fixed to be turned into something that perhaps makes more sense? You know, there is no perfect here, and there's probably more than one good map out there. But, you know, perfection is not what we're going to get, because as soon as you're trying to accomplish one goal, perhaps another goal will just fall by the wayside. So this is all about compromise, really. But as Tamina just said, you know, we worked off of this particular map, came up with draft 1. If that works, then let's take a closer look at draft 1 and see if we can make it better. And if it's just completely just does not work at all, then let's look at another draft, or we'll throw them all out and just start from scratch. That's also possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to map number 2 of public participation.
Sure, moving on to participation map 2. This again was public comment, which was submitted by paper map, and district map 2, which you saw, district draft 2, that you saw was based on this map and balanced population. I apologize for the lack of labels because it's a live map, you wouldn't be able to see it, but just noting that in District 4 over here, you have 2 pieces which are non-contiguous. That means they're not connected to each other in any way, and so that would be a problem for that map. And so we also sought to correct that in draft map 2.
Question, as far as, because I know this isn't the last time we're going to be doing this and looking over maps, is it possible as a council we can agree that if a map is clearly disqualified that we not even waste our time on it?
I would agree to that.
Sure.
Like, why are we looking at this? It's 46% over.
So do we have any public participation maps that meet the criteria?
Not completely, no.
Okay, do you have anything that's close?
This is 3, which, I mean, they all have parts that are close. So they have parts that meet the percent deviations.
But in my opinion, like if we're going to look at a map if we're going to look at a map from public participation and it's even 10 or 8, they've got to do their homework before we're looking at it. If a public, we want to entertain public participation, but we also don't want to do their work for them. If they want to submit a map, it needs to be at least close, not 46, 36, over.
Second.
That's my opinion. Otherwise, maybe we can look at maps all day long. This one's 50% off and 50% minus, and it's like, why are we looking at that?
We attempted, because we know that the public does not have access to the same software that we do, to look at maybe what communities they wanted to keep intact in those areas. So while the different public participation maps, no, none of them are perfect or reach that area where you have balanced districts, and only drafts 1 and 2 do that. We wanted to show you just what people's input was for where lines should be.
Okay.
Councilmember Draper.
I just wanted to add that it's not a matter of people not doing their homework. It's a matter of people not having access to the software, so that if they make adjustments on lines, they have no clue.
Is that true?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, just a second. They have no clue what the population density is, in a block or two of the city. So, I mean, people do their best, but they're not going to be accurate, and we should not expect that, because it's just a general idea that they're submitting, right? Okay.
And I apologize for the interruption.
It's no problem.
My clarification was, is that true that when the public goes on there, they can't see these numbers?
No.
They can't see, they don't have access to this particular software. So what there is online is there is a map online that shows the total population for a census block, for example, but one would really have to sit there and just manually add this up. So generally, the best public input and the most useful public input really is to kind of say, okay, this particular area really should be kept together, try to keep this together, try to keep that together, short of trying to become a mapping expert and then spending, $10,000 to $15,000 on the software.
Sure.
Which is what it costs, and then really put a comprehensive plan together. But, we're here because if you see something in this public participation, or if there are members of the public that feel very strongly that there is a particular area that needs to stay together or should be split, does not necessarily have to be together, we can do this right now live. So this takes really just a couple of minutes. You tell us you want to look at this or that district. Tamina pulls it up. You say, let's just try to put this particular census block in, or let's take the census block out. We'll do it right here, and we'll come up with a better draft than what we have right now.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm thinking, Bill, since we're going to have to do this every year for the next 3 or 4 years, we might want to spend the $15,000 on the software. Save a heck of a lot of money.
My sentiments exactly.
We could certainly work with our demographer and, see how we can accomplish that to possibly provide a better interactive tool. But, we had that conversation briefly prior to this item, and, the concern is that's a lot of money for 2 or 3 people to use, and then it just goes inactive and unused. But if that's the wish of the council, we can certainly.
Well, 2 or 3 people to use, but we're spending a lot of money on having this done. So it would be cheaper in the long run for us to have our own software.
I don't think that we're going to meet all of the thresholds necessary for us to do this process without having a professional demographer to support the position if we were to get into litigation.
Well, at least we could get to the point where we could present it to a professional demographer rather than wasting our time with a bunch of maps that aren't even close.
Well, I think that's certainly something that we can work with Ms. McDonald on and see if we can get some sort of interactive tool that might better suit our needs.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, thank you. To the credit of the public, I think that generally the ideas are all pretty close to what you had drawn up. And so again, going back to Mr. Brown, who is considering the interests of the community, like the wildland urban interface, for an example, and then downtown, Thermalito, the south portion of town. And so the map that I think that is, in my opinion, that I saw that best meets some of the concerns, the 2020 changes and consensus, is your draft 1. So if there was a way, because that map meets all the legal criteria, it's good. It's golden in that respect. Then maybe we could take then the public's maps, and then if there's a way to overlay or look at, well, what exactly were they concerned about as far as their concerns or needs, and how that might be able to be slightly adjusted to accommodate those concerns as to your map that you drew, the first draft, number one. And maybe that's a way we can kind of get this thing, rolling a little bit. Is that possible? Can we juxtapose the two maps, the public,
Absolutely.
and have that kind of discussion?
Sure, give me 1 second.
Councilmember Draper.
Well, I would just like to mention that for anybody in the audience who's gone online to the city website, the interactive map is useless. I tried it myself. Jackie Glover tried it. Doesn't work. And so I think public participation is really crucial to this process, and we need some way for the public to do this. And if we can't figure out when we move a line, how much population density there is there, the public certainly can't either. And so I'm with the mayor on this. I think that we're going to need some software here, or we're just going to be kind of stumbling around with it.
Thank you.
Clarify one of my comments?
Yes.
I sent it in based on the input I had. I just drew it with a pencil. I did some longhand math, as I recall how. And your consultant did what I expected. 'Cause I didn't have any hard and fast designs on my map being favored over all the others. It was just how I saw it. I think you're doing the right thing. Listen to the consultant's version of what your public submits as a starting point. What you do with it after that's up to you, because you know more than anyone it's going to change and how it's going to change over time. So it was just a shot in time at it. And I don't have my feelings hurt if you just say, get rid of that one, but keep the consultants, because that's what I expected you to do. Because they're the map makers. I'm just a guy with a pencil. Thanks.
Thank you. Are you finished, Councilmember Draper?
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Pittman.
I have a question for the blogger, but first, Mr. Brown, I would agree with you that firefighters have an inordinate sense of a community, and because of the job we do, and police officers, the same thing. We really understand populations. I could almost draw this map without even looking at the line, just from what we did and how we did it. The question I have to you is we break up census tracts, is that going to cause the county recorder a lot of grief in order to put the ballots together? Or what's been your experience with that particular issue? And because I see the census tracts getting chopped up here, more than likely. How does that play out to the county elections folks?
Yeah, so the registrar of voters has her precincts for the county, and we have to by law meet the federal criteria, first equal population and so forth. The precincts are drawn based on all of the districts that are currently in effect, of course, in Butte County, so they're county-wide. And as soon as you have a set of smaller districts come in, they have to re-precinct. We have a precinct layer, and what we would suggest doing is once you have your general architecture correct, is we will overlay them and try to do as least damage as we can to those precincts while still be within equal
5%.
population and
Okay.
not chopping up communities of interest.
Which is a problem, that even if we had the software, we probably wouldn't have the precincts that you folks are doing for us.
No, I mean, somebody can give you a precinct layer. I just would like to tell you, there's currently one company out there that makes a software that is, that's an online software,
Right.
and it is not user-friendly. It is incredibly difficult to use, and there's still a lot of work that goes into even preparing files. I mean, I'm very happy to, assist you if you want to look
Right.
into that option and tell you where to go
Yeah.
and whatnot. But I may actually have some good news for you, because the state is looking into making software available for the state redistricting, which happens to coincide with the time when you're looking at redistricting your districts, and I think you will be able to piggyback onto the software that they have And, hopefully, fingers crossed, can't promise it, then just use that.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, what I would suggest to the council, that time is of the essence, and we have to select some sort of map this go-around. So we need to work on
Exactly.
that process.
Understand
As
the
we
time
have
element.
time to go into the next one, I would suggest that as we move closer to that date when we have to have that done, that we have a series of half-day workshops where we have our demographer here that can work with the people as they present those, so that they can, run it through their software and tell them where they're at. That way, we avoid the issue of purchasing software that we won't necessarily use, and people that are really, truly interested could come and spend that time and really understand the process and help create a map.
And I want to be clear, not to devalue what you do, ma'am. I respect what you do immensely. But we're in a unique situation where we're not only approaching the census, but the annexations that are going to be taking place. We're going to be redistricting every year. So it's going to be
Completely
every 2
understood.
years. Excuse me.
Well, to clarify, after the annexation, you would still most likely, you could vote to do a mid-decade redistricting if you wanted to, but you wouldn't have to do it by law. Because you really just have to equalize the populations once you get the census figures once a decade. So that would be up to you to do that, but I think this is going slightly into legal advice, so just want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn here.
I don't really have a question for you, Dave. I'm just making comments. But if you had a comment.
For you to have no question. Keep going and let the process play.
Okay, Councilmember Draper.
I just want to confirm that the deadline for the maps is March 8th. Is that correct?
I'd have to look at the schedule.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't have it in
think
front
from
of
memory,
me.
that's what it was. So if that's the case, we have 5 days for you to come up here and do your workshops, right? Is that going to work with your schedule? If not, it looks to me like we're going to need to delay this for at least a week for that to happen.
Bill, isn't it April?
The deadline is April.
April.
Oh, is it April
I
for the
believe so.
maps?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, I
so.
thought the public submission of maps had to be done by March 8th for some reason, but not.
I don't recall that.
Okay, so then we have until April what?
I thought it was second.
Karen, can you clarify that for us, when the last date that we would accept a submission?
I think we had some deadlines for public input so that we could incorporate it into this presentation.
Exactly,
Because
that's
we
the
have
date.
to, we
Yeah.
have to process the input.
Right.
So there was a deadline, even though we did process the input after the deadline. But, so for this particular meeting, and then I think for the next one also, we just need to get the input a couple of days or so before so that we can show it to you.
Okay, so the deadline for the submission of maps from the public is when? Well, I kind of need to know a date.
The next meeting would be the 17th, so it'd
Of
be,
April?
and I think what Karen was saying was a couple days before that.
That'd be
Okay, so
No,
like-
of March, because that'll be our next
So like
public
the
hearing.
15th of March?
On the schedule, and in a couple of minutes, I will let you know. I'll
Sure.
just,
And so if it is
but I
about,
think your attorney might have it handy because that's.
okay, thank you.
You could pull it up.
Okay, well,
If you planned out.
it's not.
Planned out
Push it.
steps.
The light will go off. There you go.
There we are. If the demographer has planned out the steps of the process with the dates of the public hearing built in, that's the guideline that you should follow.
Exactly. So when you know the date, let us know. And then, prior to that date, we need to know at some point when you can conduct workshops for people to come and you can facilitate this process with your software, right? That was
I-
already discussed, I thought.
As it
The
exists right now,
workshops were discussed for possibly in the future.
that
Are
would
we
be,
having
that would be
workshops?
for the 2021 redistricting. Right now, we
Oh.
have not purchased
Yes.
or paid for, bought the consultant's time or reserved that time for
Okay.
those workshops.
Yeah,
So
because of the
there's
time
nothing.
constraints, we're
Okay.
on like a fast track, so we're skipping all of the education.
Okay, so basically, we don't know what we're doing.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh, my God.
Councilmember Goodson.
Ms. Bunker, do you have those dates? And it's my understanding that April is the deadline for all,
We can't see that.
for submission of all maps and one to be chosen. And is it my understanding that we only have one more public hearing? And that's going to be at the next council meeting. So this is it. This is crunch time.
That's what I thought.
This is March 17th.
Yes.
And then a fifth hearing date to be determined.
Absolutely. Thank you. But everything has to be finalized by April with a map submitted.
Okay, just to make sure I'm clear here.
Councilmember Draper.
I'm be the devil's advocate here, but so before March 17th, are we going to have any opportunities to submit another map? Would it be included with whatever it is that you're doing here? If you get more maps, are they going to be adjusted? You did those others?
I think you can certainly submit maps. Anybody can submit anything. I'm not entirely sure what exactly, I just don't understand.
What I'm asking is, can anyone have input on this process? And if so, how?
Well, right here, for example, people can have input. We can look at the maps. You can give input. We can move the map around live right now. Then you have a new map. Then people can comment on that. I mean, we're really sticking within the rules and regulations of the California Voting Rights Act.
Oh, no, I don't have a problem with that. My problem is, I'm wearing glasses, and I still can't, even when that's enlarged, I'd have to walk over to the wall and look at those maps to see the streets' names. So how on earth are we going to say, make an adjustment when we're looking at that, and we're looking at this? And I honestly, I'd like for us to do the best we can on this, and I don't feel like this is the best that we can do. Just, that's my opinion. Sorry.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to just take us back to the draft one again. And because you're the expert, you drill down to this, maybe you can explain the process as brief as possible, how you arrived at that, how we met all the legal criteria, and then if there are some concerns, because again, the public map is pretty close, generally speaking. And then so if there are some concerns with some streets here or there, maybe we can take and tweak that. I'm just trying to figure out how to move this conversation along, because I think in general, that if you submitted that tonight to the state, we'd meet all the legal criteria. But there may be some concerns that people have with a line here or there, and so maybe we can just work with that. So what concerns, I don't know, maybe I'm out of turn asking the question, but what would be the concern with that map that's up here or out there?
Would you like to just start at one particular district and take a look at the boundaries and see if that works for you? And if it does, then we can move on to the next district and see if that one is okay. And if you feel like there are any changes that could be made, then we will, zoom in and we will make that adjustment. We'll take a look at the total population, and if you need us to read off the street names, we're very happy to do that. We can zoom in even more if you'd like.
Yeah, because I also noticed they were blocked. You had the original piece that you submitted had these numbers of there's so many population in this area and that area.
Correct. We
And
can
I
put
noticed
that
that
on.
the boundary, that original map, and then the boundaries that came from that in this more official looking piece, took all that into consideration as to the best that I could see in my review. In general, I mean, personally, I think, with what you have to work with, considering concerns about the changes that will be coming, I'm generally okay with this unless someone can point out what doesn't work for them. Because we have to take into consideration all these legal issues to meet the criteria. But there may be specific that I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what is in the mind of others, but I think just starting with something as close as possible is the best step forward here.
Could you zoom back out, please? I think, as far as my say on these maps goes, we have general neighborhoods that everybody kind of agrees are neighborhoods. I mean, Thermalito, Southside, you know, the 1D, 1C, and downtown. So this one is, this one right here is the one that I more see follows along with those criteria. Obviously, the green zone picking up most of the industrial zone because according to the census, there's nobody that lives out there. So I like how this one keeps downtown together. The other one you had before cut downtown in half, which was be the only zone that really is divided up. So for the most part, keeping the areas together is the one I'm in favor for. So this one seems the most amicable, agreeable to me. And falls within the 5%.
Councilmember Draper.
I have a question on that map. 1F is plus 4.2% over the deviation, and then right next to it, 1.C is, or excuse me, 1-C is 0.32% under. Why is it that more of 1D was not added to 1C or something? I mean, why is it that are these boundaries the most significant, do you think, for neighborhoods over there? Because I know for one thing, in 1C, it would seem like part of that should somehow be connected with 1F. And then, but it's got the area around, let's see, or it's got from Orange Avenue down, which is Oroville High School, is connected clear up to the area of Canyon Highlands. And that's not a neighborhood. So I'm not really understanding exactly why that is not made more equitable, I guess.
If you would like to move some of the lines around and see if we can equalize the populations by uniting a neighborhood that is currently split or uniting an area that perhaps has more in common, then we're happy to do it right now.
Can you see the street names, Eric?
We can read it off to you.
Zoom one more time. I know the streets, so.
Well, I do too.
And like I said,
I can't
the
read
lines
that.
were based on public participation map 1, so that's, we tried to get as close to that as possible while maintaining the deviation.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
But
Washington.
I agree with what Linda's saying. Can you zoom out for a second? With 1C and 1D, can you see what the numbers would look like? No, move over this, there you go. We're 227, right there. If the line was straight down Orodam instead of squiggling down Mitchell?
Sure. And you'd like to put, just to clarify, you'd like to put
Straight
this
down,
area
yeah.
227 into 1C,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Cutting it right down Orodam. Because 1C is negative and 1D is 2.5. Wow, so bring it over 7%, almost 1C.
But that doesn't matter, that doesn't mean that you can't still adjust it at some other place, because again.
What if you cut in, instead of adding that whole 227, can you zoom in right where, yeah, a little up? Would it be faster if I?
Can't even see on this thing.
I mean,
What if you went right here?
One census block.
I took this part here.
What is that street? Can you see?
This is Gilmore.
Okay, so I'm going to put this back into 1D.
Leave it there.
Leave it there, okay?
Add this zone right here.
You're making blue bigger.
It's going to make the blue bigger. So we need
The
to,
other way.
Yeah, it goes the wrong way.
if you want to look around the blue and red border, there are some smaller population blocks up there. We could see if one of those perhaps.
You can see those little numbers. Area, like 227 here, that's why I jumped, 21,
Okay.
12, 54.
His 1C is now plus almost 7% up there.
Okay.
Is this a road or is that a power line?
This is a road.
What if you added that?
Now it's at 6.
Now you see what we're dealing with the shape of the census block. So this is the census block we're dealing with. I cannot just take that bottom part.
Yeah, that's like gerrymandering more than.
That's all we're doing is jury.
Oh my gosh.
But you could take these bottom parts.
Take this out here.
Take this out over here, okay.
Now see what that.
Okay.
Oh. You got here.
I just like the Oro Dam, in my opinion, I like Oro Dam being a very clear line.
Yeah, that should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, since you're close, could you read down those numbers?
2.92, -7.74.
Yeah. So that's closer.
That is closer.
That's better.
Good job.
You need a pointer.
Good job.
We were told the pointer doesn't work on that screen, so apologies.
And then you have 1F
Oh,
that's
that one
plus
F.
4 and 1A that's
One
negative
is
4.
negative 4.
Can we zoom in? Can we zoom into this area here then? We just swallow a little bit here to see what
How
that does.
much?
Because again,
Well,
this
it'll
is,
tell
Gardella?
you with the voting district.
No, get the mobile home park.
light up.
Okay.
That screen.
Is that Winston Gardens right there? 239?
Can you go up a little bit? Or if we cut down Stafford, click this one.
And
There's
okay. And something else.
again. A little bit closer. Add this one, just to get it closer. We're at, it's closer, it's getting there a little bit. Now zoom out so we can see in green and purple. Splitting hairs here.
No.
Light it up so we can see green. So now instead of 4, it's only 1 point.
That's better.
That is much better then.
But that green area is gonna see some growth.
Worry about that later. Don't even go there.
That's next.
It's negative, that's good.
Don't even.
So, just out of view here, this is the biggest one, and that one's
Right.
biggest negative, that one's biggest positive, but whatever.
What I'm saying, the west part of town is gonna see the biggest growth, so the more negative those numbers are, the better
If all the numbers
in the
are,
long run.
if all the numbers are, this is the highest deviation, it's a 3 point, which is
That's
a
not
lot
bad.
closer than 4.
That's not bad. So what does it look like with the adjustments?
Well, you have much better deviation now. You have the orange district 1B is now negative 3.08%. The purple district 1F is 1.86%. The blue district 1C is 2.92%. The reddish kind of district to the right is 1D, that is negative 0.74%. The yellow district 1E is plus 0.74%, and the green district 1A is negative 1.73%.
See, what I like about the periphery being in the negative, when 2020 happens, that's where all our growth is happening. In the area, like the blue, the 1C, that's land, there's no real added housing. Well, there could be a little bit. And then it's especially 1F downtown, really, there's no change there. So it's good that they're in the positive, and then the periphery is in the negative, because that will help the balance when we have those demographic changes, in my opinion.
It's a good opinion.
Can I ask you, on 1B, did that one change on the percentage?
No,
No?
we didn't touch it.
Okay, and so 1F became 1.86, 1A became 1.73, 1C
Negative.
became, oh, that's
Negative.
negative, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I got that. And then 1C is positive 2.92%, and then 1E is positive 7.74%, 1D is 0.74% negative.
Negative.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay? If we have other ideas for suggestions, how do we email them to the city attorney? Or, what are we supposed, what's the process for that?
Yeah, we were told that all the communication should go through the city attorney, but we're happy to come earlier before the next meeting if you'd like to explore something else.
That would be really helpful if you could do that.
Yeah, we're happy to do
Swear.
that.
Okay, but it's looking better.
Okay, Vice Mayor Thompson, did you wish to speak?
I'm done.
Councilmember Draper?
Oh, no, I already made mine.
Okay.
Excellent.
So
Is
Teamwork
there any
makes the
public
dream
input
work.
on that, or?
With the council's permission, I will save this map and label it as draft three?
Draft 3, city council.
Thank you.
Could you email that map up so we can get it distributed to our council members?
Absolutely.
Thank you. It will also be available on the city website.
Beautiful.
Okay, so if there are no more comments or input, this time we're going to close public hearing. On to regular business, item number 12, mid-year financial review.
Can you just let me, thank you. Good
Ruth?
evening, Mayor and City Council members. I have a mid-year review for you. We looked at the budget versus actuals.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we have to maintain order here. We're in a council meeting. Ruth, can we have your report, please?
Yes, I lost my display. In your agenda, we have a 6-year mid-year review of all the departments and how they're doing on their percentages. I don't know what happened. Anyway, it's in your agenda packet. So I have the general fund first, and the revenues are at 47%, so we're very close to 50%, meaning we did a good job. The general fund expenditures, we're at 60%. And there was a couple items in there I asked council for budget adjustments on. We went over on the property tax insurance, and that's because our property value is appraised every 5 years, and this was one of the years. And our appraisals came back much higher than the previous years, so I was short $68,000 in our property insurance. I'd like a budget adjustment for that. And also, the Public Works was very under budgeted. At the beginning of the year, we had a building official, and we didn't really have much going on in the Public Works Department. But since then, we've contracted out those services, and so there's a lot of expenditures, a lot of activity going on there. So I'd like to adjust another budget adjustment for Public Works. Those I believe, are the only two things I'm asking for the expenditures and the general fund. And the revenues, we had a small reimbursement that I just like $500 increase to the human resource budget for revenues. And those are the only budget adjustments I'm asking for. I have it separated. I just wanted to note that we have the general fund, and then at the back I did the district tax separate. For financial reporting purposes, these two are considered general fund. And so when we do our financial statements, they're combined. But I know that everybody wants to know what we're doing in the new tax, so I have them separated out. There's a really slow start with expenditures for the new district tax, but we're gaining a lot of speed on that, and so you'll see a lot of things coming through. And the revenues, I think we have discussed before, we budgeted $4.2 million for the new district tax. It looks like it's going to be exceeding that, maybe 5.5, maybe $6 million. So there's going to be quite a large surplus in our district tax this year. Other things I noted in my staff report, that we had $2 million received in September. That was the only one-time money we've received this year. That has really caused our revenues to be looking really good this year. They haven't been appropriated by council yet. And That's all. That's all I had in my notes.
Ruth, could you let the council know what percentage of our budget was expended on December 31st as opposed to what percentage was left?
Yes, on the general fund,
Yes.
60%. We have 60% of our budget still available in our general fund for expenditures.
So what that means is that we're coming in under budget, about 10% under budget mid-year. So we're, right now, as it's set at mid-year, we're in pretty good financial shape.
Good job. Thank you.
Good.
Are there any questions, or are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards on this item.
Councilmember Goodson would like to speak.
Thank you, Ruth. That was a great report, but I want to thank the citizens of Oroville, because it's because of you and because of the measure that you voted on. You listened to us. You saw the dire straits that we were in, and you trusted us enough to vote for that. And the whole city appreciates you. And I hope that everybody can start seeing the improvements, and we're working together very well.
I do
Thank
also
you.
want to mention that all of this is online. We are uploading all this information monthly to OpenGov, and I think we're current up to January. So if anybody wants to look this or dive deep into, drill down and look at things closer, everything is in there, down to the line item.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the dais? Having none, this was informational only, correct?
Oh, no, I am asking for some budget adjustments.
Oh, you
The ones
are?
that- Yes.
Okay. We're looking for a motion for the budget adjustments and expenditures as agendized.
So I move that we accept the budget adjustments as agendized.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 14, Municipal Services Review Update and Sphere of Influence Update.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. First of all, I guess I want to emphasize again, since some additional people have arrived, that we are not talking tonight about initiating annexation of any area. We are talking about whether council would like to hear community input on that at a separate meeting held by staff. We'll send out letters to everybody. So I just want to emphasize that again. This report has many parts. As has been discussed several times, the city needs to update its municipal services review, which is a document required by the Local Agency Formation Commission. And I know this is jumbo, but it's what is required. As most of you probably know, the city at one point attempted to annex Ruddy Creek. And LAFCO said no, because you cannot provide the services as is shown on your municipal service review. As has already been emphasized tonight, we're in a completely different position. The city is very healthy financially, both because of its growth and because of the district tax. As a result, and the municipal services review was updated in 2014. As a result, it is basically imperative that the city update the municipal services review. That is a document technically that is the Local Agency Formation Commission's document. And again, I'm sorry, it's just the way the law is. They are the ones that technically are the ones that approve that document. We are required to prepare it to submit it to them. So there are two separate items here, and I'd kind of like to parse out what's in front of you. And those two items are to authorize the municipal services review update by the consultant recommended by LAFCO, and to enter into the agreement with the Local Agency Formation Commission, which is called LAFCO, to review that and accept that. So I'm asking for that first, and then I will go into further detail. If there are questions on that, please.
Are there any questions from the dais? Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I do have two public speakers on this item. It looks like one of them left. So the one that I still have in the room is Patricia Knoll.
And I don't have any
covered what they want to do, that scope of influence, or sphere of influence.
Tom?
So I'll move on to the other items. As the council may recall, you voted a number of months ago to initiate a general plan amendment for the Wilbur area. The owners of most of that property, no, a third of that property came in and indicated they wanted to build housing. Part of that process then highlighted looking at the rest of the area, and the maps in your packet directly behind the mayor shows 5 areas that are inner sphere influence, and then the Wilbur area. And as Mr. LeGrone pointed out earlier, what we're requesting for those areas, minus the area on the left of the map, is simply to initiate community discussion. We're not asking for any council action. We're asking council basically to let us hold community hearings to see what people think. One of the reasons for that is the area we talked about, the Wilbur area, which is on the left edge of the map in the light purple. LAFCO has certain requirements, and the requirements to approve either sphere or annexation are logical boundaries, efficient delivery of services, and contiguity. Typically, if we were to look at that light purple area, they would ask, why isn't that other area in the city? In addition to that, and I think as importantly, we have a lot of activity going on in the community. There are 3 to 4 very active subdivisions in the Thermalito area, which logically, when new growth occurs, it ought to occur in the incorporated area. That's also LAFCO policy. We have at least one of those areas that's actively talking again about annexation, the Ruddy Creek area. So it seems logical to staff to at least discuss with the individuals that live there whether they have any interest in coming into the city. And that's all this action would do. This action would simply say, we're going to send out a notice to the areas, we're going to have meetings to see what the level of interest is in annexation. That also is important in moving the Wilbur area ahead, regardless of that outcome. Let me check my notes. I think I've covered everything I want to cover. I would say that we are not asking for action at this point on the sphere change or on the environmental review, because those will come in front of you when we've completed the general plan for Wilbur, which we hope to do in maybe a 4-month period. And they'll come to you, the environmental review will come to you depending on your decision regarding proceeding with any of the annexations.
Thank you.
So again, the actions that staff would appreciate is the initiation of the municipal service review and the entering into agreement with LAFCO.
Councilmember Pittman?
Am I, okay, I'm on. The Wilbur Road had a project of some years ago, and I believe there was a development agreement that was between the city and that developer. Is that agreement still in place?
That actually, as I understand it, if we're talking about the same one as the area, I believe in Orange, is that right?
Yeah.
Which is Oro Bay. And that actually is already in the sphere, and they went through the whole process, did a full environmental impact report, a specific plan, as I recall, and then the project fell apart. We've talked to them several times. At this point, they're not interested in pursuing, but there may be some other people that pick that project up.
Okay. The other question I have if we give the go-ahead for contacting those out there that are within this area of jurisdiction, will we have information about the MSR completed, or will it just be what we have existing today?
We would have to, before we initiated annexation, we would have to have the municipal services review done so we could show, or not show, that we could provide services as individuals, and we'd also know more about what the needs are.
So the MSR would be done, completed, and then we contact those that might be within that area?
If council decides to proceed, we'd probably do it at the same time. We'd probably hold community meetings. We understand that there are concerns and issues, and we don't want it hanging out there that we'd rather just sit down with the neighbors and hear their concerns at the same time.
Sure.
But we're not asking to take action on that. I'll say that again.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have one public speaker card and for Patricia Knoll.
And he answered my questions, so.
Thank you. So no more comments from the dais?
I would actually like to ask something. So you mentioned that all those.
Can you come up and get recorded
Sir.
so we hear you? Yeah.
And sir, the way we operate here is we fill out a blue speaker card before.
Yeah,
so
well, I'm sorry. I wasn't planning on speaking because you guys said that you guys would be sending out public notices.
What
for
is your name,
comment.
sir?
My name is Sean Smith.
Sean Smith. Okay.
So I'm sorry. But you said that you guys would send out notices for public input on annexing that property. And then as he was just explaining, he said that they would be looking for public input on all the other pieces except for the light purple. And so I'd just like some clarification on that. Are you guys going to ask us for public input on that light purple section or not?
The answer to that question is yes, it will be held separately. That is a area that actually we would have to do a general plan amendment on, and we will be contacting all the owners in that area. Yes, sir.
And then what time frame are we looking at that?
My own wish would be to do that in the next 30 to 60 days.
Because the only reason I even came down here tonight was I just heard about this yesterday. And so for this to be moving forward that fast, it's kind of surprising.
Sir, no action's being taken tonight on that, period.
Okay.
We're just deciding whether we want to talk about moving forward and take action down the road. We have to make a decision whether we're even going to consider it. I'm sorry. We got to maintain order. If you wish to speak, you need to come up to the speaker.
I'm sorry. We get a little excited. We bought property out there. If we wanted to be in the city, we would have bought property in the city. So that's where we're coming from.
Right.
Along with the other three gentlemen that left. We all feel pretty much the same way, so. Just to let you guys know. So we definitely want to make sure that we're informed on what's going on.
You will
And
be.
have adequate time to go ahead and give our input.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all.
And
Thank
if-
you.
If I may add in the dialogue, staff doesn't just decide these things and then notify. It first comes to council, and then we say, yes, we want to talk about it. At that point, we direct staff, notify all those residents. That's that conversation. Do we want to talk about it and notify the residents, or are we not interested in talking about it?
I also would like to clarify, because the gentleman is correct, we are not asking, I know it was on the agenda, but we are not asking for a sphere of influence resolution at this time. Part of the reason is the reason you just stated, sir.
Perfect. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more speakers,
So again, the action that we are requesting is authority to update the municipal services review and enter into the agreement with LAFCO. And I will say it's not general fund money, it's coming out of the planning grant we received earlier.
Councilmember Goodson would like to speak.
So, Tom, just for clarification, what I hear you saying is for the recommendation, exempt item 4, authorizing the city to submit the sphere.
What I'm saying,
That's
actually,
eliminated.
we've changed in large part because of what the gentleman just said. We're asking for the ability to update the municipal services review.
All
We're
right.
asking for the agreement with LAFCO, and I think I'm missing one item there too.
The adoption of the notices of exemption for the MSR.
Actually, at this point, we are not asking for those. So we're asking for
All
the
right.
two actions. I know what I forgot. The third action is to begin community discussions on the annexation areas and sphere change. No action other than begin community discussion. So those are the three things we're asking for.
All right. Looking for a motion to move forward as agendized?
I believe,
So-
Mr. Mayor, we're going to have a specific motion because there are multiple things agendized.
Whoever
that are
makes the
excluded.
motion can read it out.
Can you list those three things
Can I-
for me again, Tom?
I can make the motion. I'm ready.
All right.
So, yeah, I'd like to move that we allow staff to do the SOI update and review, the MSR study and review, and to begin a community update.
Discussion.
And discussion. Thank
Can I also ask that you authorize the agreement with LAFCO at the same time?
And to authorize the agreement with OFCO.
I second that. LAFCO. I second
Local
that.
Agency Formation Commission. Again, I'm sorry about the jargon.
No, that's,
Yeah.
we
yeah.
understand.
We have it all here. It's just, there's a lot. Yeah.
Listen to it all. Yeah, just, you're gonna have to listen to it. We'll go over it.
We have no screen.
I'm gonna go for this, but it's gotta be
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 15, authorization to purchase new 3 one-ton trucks. One 2021 Peterbilt 520 water truck.
Evening, Mayor Reynolds and Council. Dawn Nevers, Assistant Director of Community Development. Yes, staff is seeking approval to purchase 3 2020 Ford F-350 dump bed trucks and 1 Peterbilt water truck. For the 3 dump bed trucks, the purpose is, 1, the existing fleet is aging, high mileage, and needs many repairs that are costly. Second, with the Measure U dollars, we were able to hire 6 staff members for the Parks and Trees and Streets Department, or between those 2. So that is also causing a shortage of vehicles for those departments. The water truck is being requested because the existing water truck is also aging, but also the request for the new water truck is a 2,000-gallon tank versus the existing 1,200-gallon tank. So that would allow the Parks Department to water more street trees at one time. And also secondary uses for that water truck are filling the sewer department's VACCON truck, dust control during projects, and filling the fire trucks in rural areas. The fiscal impact for the 3 F-350 dump trucks would be provided in the 2019-2020 Capital Assessment Replacement Fund.
Excuse me, I hear a noise. It's distracting. Thank you.
Second, the funding for the purchase of the water truck would come or be realized in the 2020-2021 fiscal budget with an impact of $211,670. So at this time, staff is seeking authorization to purchase these vehicles.
Councilmember Hatley, is there something you wish to say? I was wondering why you were banging. It's distracting. Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
No, if I want to say something else.
I appreciate that. Councilmember Pittman would like to speak.
Yeah, I certainly can add to the issue about the age of the current water truck. What's the plan for the old equipment?
The old equipment would be put through the auction for public sale.
So it's surplus, we're not going to
Surplus,
plan to use it again?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, that's all I was looking for. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson?
Let me piggyback off of that was a good question, Councilman Pittman. Will we be finding out what that revenue is coming, and will it
From the
will it
surplus
be
of
coming
the-
back to the cities?
We can absolutely bring it back to you as to what the sale is of those surplus
Yes.
vehicles. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
If I could add to, the water truck is not going to bring much value. It doesn't meet the current emission standards and things like that. It has a leaking water tank. It's well used. And, you know, it's in such poor condition, we may pay you to take it. You know, but the other trucks, typically, you know, just at an auction, we usually get somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 for them because they are well worn and used, so. But the water truck will have very little value.
Everybody's going through that on their emissions. It's forced to replace. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I just want to say that sometimes the boots on the ground, the people doing all the, you know, heavy lifting in our city, you know, that when they have equipment that's failing, there's nothing more frustrating. Of course, you know, risk, personal injury risk increases, productivity goes down when you're just dealing with junky stuff. And so anytime we can enhance and upgrade, and we can do that within the budget, then, you always get a yes and amen from me. So, yeah, I
Right.
think that's great.
And to add to that, having new equipment also brings a sense of pride to the crews.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, no, absolutely. Having
Mhm.
nice new equipment, yeah, absolutely. Very good.
And if I could add just one more thing for the council for your consideration. These purchases are going to be made, and the only general fund, this will only be an expenditure of $20,000 to our general fund. There's other sources of financial resource that the city has that we have reached into to use to pay for these upgrades and these enhancements to our fleet.
Great job, thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards in this item.
Having no more comments, looking for a motion?
I move that we authorize the purchase of the 110 Ford trucks in the amount of $127,943.55.
I'll second that. Oh,
and
were you
then-
finished?
And authorize the purchase of a 2021 Diamond Steel Peterbilt 520 water truck in the amount of $211,670.62.
Okay, I'll second that now then.
Are we voting on these now?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember
First and a second.
Draper, would you,
Oh, I'm
can we
sorry.
finish the vote, please? Vice Mayor?
Oh, my apologies.
Motion carries.
Got distracted. Let's vote.
Okay, item number 16, selection of the 2020 Samuel J. Norris Award for Excellence recipient. The council will consider the selection of a recipient for the 2020 Samuel J. Norris Award for Excellence.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an annual award that is typically given out at the Mayor's State of the City address, which we will be doing again this year. I believe it's April 7th at the, is that the correct date, Jackie? 9th at the State Theater this year. What you have before you is 4 people that were nominated to receive this award. You have Lori Souza, Steve Terry, Lori and Sean Pierce, and Larry Tracy. This is an award that typically the council will vote on by secret ballot. We will look at those ballots once you pass them, once you select your selectee for the award. If you would pass those down toward Councilperson Draper, we will go through those and we will determine if there's a winner. If there is not, we will reduce it down to the top 2 vote getters and we will redistribute ballots, let you know who those are. And then once we do have a winner, we will not tell you who that is. You will find out on April 9th at the State of the Mayor, the State of the City address.
We all know the state of the mayor.
So if you would make your selection and fill out your ballot.
No.
Councilmember Smith, would you like to comment?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, I'm sure we all read through all the recommendations, and they were also passionate and well-written, and each and every one of these individuals are well-deserving. And I would just say that, if your candidate is not selected this year, submit next year. They were just all, it was so just encouraging to read all of the contributions that our citizens make to our city to make it a special place. And so I just personally want to say I appreciate all those submittals, and I would want every one of you up there to receive an award. And I think there's probably a lot of mutual feelings up here. So this is a tough choice. It really is.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Smith, and I've participated in this for a number of years in my service up here in the council. It's very difficult because we have so many recognitions, well-deserving, which caused me, as I was reviewing all the applications, I just thought to myself, the Sam Norris Award has its nice recognition and appropriate, and I remember when it was first created. I'm thinking of an idea that we might want to add a recognition along with this, say a Sam Norris Society of Applicants for the future, so that those folks that don't make it to the Sam Norris Award might be capable of being on a list, somewhat like the high school's Hall of Fame, where you have so many Hall of Fame folks in that. So it's just an idea I'm going to throw out there. Obviously, it's not going to fit this year, but we just have so many applicants that are well-deserving, at least some kind of recognition. Maybe not the Sam Norris, but maybe a city of Fraternal Order of Sam Norris or something like that. I'd be interested in seeing if some other city has the same kind of thing, because there are so many good applications here. It's really hard to pick this. So just an idea for the future.
I'd like to comment on this award, too. I was nominated for this 3 or 4 times, and now that I know how they decide the winner, I'm pretty upset at some ex-council members. Anyway, can I have the ballots, please?
Sure.
He's just going to let us.
Thank you, council members. We have a winner.
Okay, great.
Oh, all right.
To be announced at the State of the City. Thank you. All right, moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence. Councilmember Draper?
Okay, I thought maybe Pittman was already there. Okay, I left my notes for this at home, so this is from memory. In February, I met with Leslie Johnson and others of CHAT, the organization in Chico, and they've been doing quite a bit with housing the homeless in Chico, and they are renting houses like Anastasia Snyder was talking about, and then subletting rooms to individuals that seem to be able to live together. And so far, they have rented 40 homes in Chico and helped 140 men, women, and children get off the streets. And so they are looking for possibly doing a similar program in Oroville. Secondly, I attended the docents luncheon for the docents of the museums. And many of them have donated, volunteered hours, up to 1,500 hours each, cumulative over the years. So it was really neat to see them be honored at that luncheon for all the good service that they do. Saturday, I attended the ribbon cutting for the beautiful mine shaft mural.
Could you pass that to Bill, please?
The pen?
Thank you, yes.
Is that all?
Oh, he was scribbling and I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then Saturday, I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for that really beautiful mural of the mine shaft on the Steve Seidenglantz building on Montgomery Street, and it is gorgeous. If you haven't seen that mural yet, you really need to go by there and look at it. The artist, Ted Hansen, and I think it's Frank Wilson, did an incredible job. And then when they were all finished, they coated it with this special paint that enables it to really last for many, many years. So that was really exciting to see that come to fruition. And a lot of people from the city were there, and so that was really nice. Also, I visited some of the museums with 4 of my grandchildren and my husband and my daughter-in-law, Rachel, that same day. And it was a beautiful day, and the museums were just wonderful, as always. And at the Chinese temple, the docents there, Jan Clay is one of them, they let the children use little stamps to create Chinese calligraphy on papers, and gave them Chinese fortune cookies, so the kids absolutely loved that place. And lastly, I met with Sherry Bunker and Dawn Nevers as part of the ad hoc committee for the Arts Commission to decide where the city design should go on each of the murals in town, to let people know that they used money from grants and that's for sort of thing from the city. And that's all I have.
Council members.
Can I ask Councilwoman Draper, I have a question about the coating on that mural. And I don't know if you know it, but is it a preventative coating for tagging?
I think things can be easily cleaned off it. Isn't that right, Dawn? That it's the kind of coating that other things can be removed and it won't, that's what's really wonderful about it. Yeah.
That is what the artist had mentioned, that it is a protective coating, but it also helps to remove tagging at an easier
Okay,
pace.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And it preserves the paint, for decades. That's going to be there.
That's
So it's
good.
really neat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I just want to give an additional shout out to all our docents, Michelle Kahn, for all the extra effort that they went through in Museum Week this past weekend. And it would be nice to know what the numbers are. Because anecdotally, it seemed like as I was listening to some of the docents talk, it was like record numbers of turnout. And we just have wonderful museums, wonderful assets in our town. And I know it was a lot of extra work because, as already mentioned by Councilwoman Draper, these folks volunteer a lot of hours. And so it's a lot of extra work that went into that. So we just, again, thank you for going through the extra mile on that. And then again, just to mention the Arbor Days Festival, March 14th, right over here at the BCOE Bicentennial Park. It's going to be a full day, a lot of fun. Bring out the kids. I think the noted grant-funded group, they're called the Tree Circus. And so it's really just kid-oriented, a lot of fun. I think that's going to be around noon. There's a schedule that's on a website. And I just drew a blank on what that website is, but it is the Oroville Botanical Gardens Education Center, I believe. And anyway, you can Google that up and get on that schedule and find out what all the happenings are. But it's just a good thing to, again, celebrate Arbor Day and all that it means to Oroville in particular.
Anyone else? Councilmember Pittman?
Real quick, the Oroville Dam Citizens Safety Commission. Advisory, thank you. Advisory Commission met on the 21st of February, and we had a pretty long dissertation from the Army Corps of Engineers on flood operations and how it affects the pool of Lake Oroville and the rest of the State Water Project. Interestingly, one of the things they were focused on is the manual to operate the dam was last written in 1974. And it's going to be a while to get the new one brought up to speed. It might take as many as 3 to 5 years to bring the manual up to current understanding. So that was an interesting thing. And also how the Army Corps of Engineers coordinates with so many other water providers in the area. So just to highlight that basically the Oroville Dam is a very complicated project. And the primary reason for it for us is flood control. And that's a big deal on how that works. So fascinating meeting. A lot of good work was done and presented to us. And there's I don't know, I think there's 20 different agencies involved in that. And it was things to really be informed about. And we have an obligation to the public to realize that we're talking about so many different issues. So that was one meeting. The other one I'll just quickly run and mention the SCORE meeting because it was probably one of the longest meetings in their history in terms of
Not when it first started out. They'd go till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it was 21 items on the agenda. One of the big issues was they had a review of the engineering firm of Jacobs Engineering to talk about how to proceed in the future as far as a strategy to upgrade the plant. And the board was given 2 options, and they selected option 1, which will be forthcoming in the future about how to make things work better down there. The other thing that was added is the board moved forward on a new ultraviolet disinfection system to have that installed versus the old chlorine disinfected system, plus a new trash rack and inflow rack will be replaced. Also mapping of the SCORE property, so we have good, clear mapping of it. And then an auxiliary pump was added to the pump station for a 3rd pump in installation and the clay pond drain valve replacements. I only detail those because there's a lot of work going on down there, and you need to understand that. And it's part of, we all have input to that facility, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Literally.
I didn't want to go there. I didn't, if you're curious about the numbers, we're spending a lot of good money to get those things functioning in a much more improved way. And I think one of the things that I use is the plants being brought up to speed from an analog situation to a digital operation. And if that helps you understand what they're doing, there's certainly more detail available if you want further follow-up on it, but, and I don't even have the dollar amount, but we're spending a lot of money. And some of it came from the additional revenue that occurred from all the camps that were built here in the Oroville area that had to deliver waste to the plant. And it was not the kind of thing that you take, the opportunity of, but yet it's money to fix a lot of good equipment down there. So look forward to that happening. And you have some more input. I just wanted to list it and you can add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to let Councilmember Goodson speak first, though.
I just wanted to state for the record that facility is definitely antiquated. It was built in the 1950s, so it is definitely time for a revamping, just a new facility, really. So appreciate the good work.
Thank you. My wife asked me after the last meeting, how come you never say all the things that you do? And, I said, I don't know. I just do it. I nearly every day I'm doing multiple things involved with this city and this community. So I made it a point to keep track, to write things down this time. And then I forgot the list in my truck. So that's God's way of telling me just settle down. But I am on a committee with Councilmember Pittman, with the senator and the assemblyman, and Congressman LaMaffa was even there this time for input, and it's a big deal. There's a lot going on with this water and this dam, and you have a lot of good people looking out for you. Even though the average citizen might not pay attention to certain things going on, I know I didn't before I was completely involved. Just know that there are good people that are looking out for you. So I really appreciate that. I went to the mural dedication as well. Excellent art, excellent crowd. It was a good time. Sierra Pacific grand opening of their new office. I don't know if anyone realizes that Sierra Pacific is the second largest landowner in the United States. Mm-hmm. And they're our little mill right here. They have over 2 million acres in California alone. And they have property through Washington and Oregon. So, some neat things you find out when you go actually visit people where they do what they do. They are the only makers of number 2 pencils in the world. I think we've all used a number 2 pencil at one time or another. I had no idea that they were made right here in Oroville and shipped all over the place. Went to the cheerleading presentation, was invited to that, and our girls at Oroville High took, and one gentleman, took second in the nationals, and something to be very, very proud of. Just absolutely amazing things going on around here. So those are a few of the things that were on my list, and just know that you have a very active council up here who has your best interests and your best representation at heart. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for reminding me about Sierra Pacific. We got a chance to not only tour the facility and see their improvements, in addition to their new $5 million plant that's going to handle sawdust waste and turn it into a commodity, but we got a chance to talk to Red Emerson, who is the owner and family owner of SPI. And I, from the city's point of view, thanked him for coming back to Oroville. At one time, I remember we had 7 operating sawmills cutting raw logs here with teepee burners all over the place. We lost them all for one reason or another, and they're the mill that came back. And they built it themselves with the employees that were there, so the employees have ownership to that facility. And as a private landowner in California, you might think, well, gee whiz, you know, they're so far ahead of us in terms of proper forest management. Every tree they cut down, they plant 8 in its place, 8, and they're very proud of that fact. So you really have something going on here that's bigger than a lot of folks imagine. And, you know, they haul, I think it was 30 railroad car loads of cedar fence board out a day. So it's pretty amazing when you have such a huge facility in your own operation, you don't realize it. But I thanked him for coming back and reinvesting in our community and providing the jobs. And also, the interesting thing about a green, healthy forest is probably one of the best resistances to wildland fire. You never heard anybody say that, but I'm going to say it very loud. A green, healthy, growing forest is the biggest resistance to wildland fire. And SPI is doing it every day. And it's their choice to do it. They don't have to do it. I don't see any of the other National Forest, CAL FIRE, any of the other agencies planting trees at that rate. In fact, the last few fires, has anybody ever seen any trees planted back? Few. So we should see, if we could meet the SPI goal of 8 trees for every tree burned down, that would be huge. So I just wanted to let the community know that I got a chance to personally thank him for bringing that facility back to us.
Thank you. Rotary did plant 2,000 trees.
I know, yeah. That was out in Bangor.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to say that with Sierra Pacific, Red was there, he's the owner, and he is the original owner. He and his father started the company 70 years ago, and Red is now 90 years old. And just a very personable, nice guy, down to earth, just absolute amazing accomplishments, and really proud of that industry there. So, Councilmember Draper?
I found my list, and I'm going to mention one other thing. I got to go to Sierra Avenue School on March 2nd and participate with their Read Across America program. And so I bought a couple little books and read them to a class of little 3rd graders. And it was so much fun. And those little kids are just adorable. It was Mr. Reed's 3rd grade class there. And I'm going to do it next year. I just really enjoyed it so much. And I just want to let everyone know, you don't have to be on city council or in a city position of any kind to go do that. And if you contact any of the schools in Butte County, they love to have adults come and read to the children. So I'd like to encourage people, if they haven't done that, to try it. It's really a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson?
I just want to give a shout out to Sierra Pacific Industries as well. Last year I had an opportunity to tour that site. I actually wore my stilettos. But what was interesting is there is a safety award. I don't recall what it is. It's very rare. It takes a lot of diligence, stick-to-itiveness to be awarded that. It took them approximately 2 years to get that. So they are well-deserving. In addition to that, and the mayor mentioned something in regards to a cheerleading competition.
Yes.
Oroville High School.
Mhm.
And if my memory serves me correctly, no?
No, Las Plumas.
That's Las Plumas. We'll catch you next year. All right. Well, we applaud your service anyway in the cheerleading department. All right.
I certainly would have mentioned you if it was the case. Okay, if there are no other comments, we're looking for future agenda items. Councilmember Draper?
I would just like to see where we are with that tree ordinance that we were working on a couple of years ago. And especially since Arbor Day is coming up, I thought it would be really timely to kind of look at it and see where we are with that. And I know there were some issues because there were costs involved for people. If they had a dead tree, they had to pay a fee to have it removed. And I recall I asked that we could maybe remove those fees because it's especially difficult for people if they have a dead tree to pay $50 to cut their own tree down. So I was just wanting to know where we are with that tree ordinance and if it's been tweaked enough that maybe it's ready to go.
Yes, ma'am. What we'll do is we will bring it back at the next council meeting to update you, and then we will probably have to revisit it one or two times and then get something done, because I too would like to have this completed. And what we were waiting on was for Dawn to come back to work for us to complete this. So she's here now, so she can complete it.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Are there any other future agenda items? Having none, moving on to administration reports. Bill?
I just have a few things for the council. One is just to update the council on the Councilman Smith had asked for a damaged city property policy. That policy is going to go into effect, and it will be in the operation policy for the Public Works crew. It's not an actual policy or ordinance of the city. It's actually just an operating procedure. So that is being worked on and will be completed in the operations manual shortly if it isn't already. I'd also like to invite everybody down to the Arbor Day Festival while you're there, or the celebration. I'd like you to take the opportunity to meet Wade Atterbury. He's a city arborist. He's a very special guy who is somebody who takes this very serious, takes his job very serious, and he is the person that is really behind the Arbor Day celebration. He's the one that comes in and reminds me, puts it all together. Last year it was a great event. I was a little disappointed that more people didn't show up. It's interesting to see how the tree trucks work and how high up in the air the lift actually gets. I mean, so it's just a real neat event, a real interesting event. So I'd like to invite everybody down to that. I'd also attended the mural dedication this weekend. What I wanted to announce is that after doing that and with the actions that were taken tonight with the council of prolonging or extending the agreement with Stage, that I think that it's probably time that we circle back on revisiting a NOFA for the Arts Commission at this point, because I think we have enough work done that we're not getting overwhelmed with NOFAs. But, I was kind of reluctant at that because of so many projects that were out there. But now it looks like we got enough completed, enough, for lack of a better term, suspended, that we can probably handle something a little bit more with that. Just two more things. Bedrock Park, the bathroom did get burned. It was an arson. We don't know who did it. We just know that someone did it. So the bathroom has been burnt down there. It appears to be a total loss because of the damage to the wood structure that's inside. We have future plans for that do not include it being a bathroom. So we will look to do something else with that, but that plan's also going to have to include some sort of public restrooms, because that is something that we absolutely should be providing to the community. So we're going to really seriously be looking at a Portland loo up there in replacement for that, and then doing something a little bit different with that building as it exists up there. We also are looking at the levee, just so everybody knows, in the next couple months, they're probably going to see a large herd of goats out there, and those goats the mission is to start down at Bedrock Park and work there all the way to the Green Bridge and eat away all of the vegetation there up to however high the goats can reach. So it'll just be, we're going to try to do that biannually just to keep the area clean, keep the vegetation back, make the river more accessible and usable. So if you do see goats out there, no, you're not seeing things. They're out there actually serving a purpose.
What time?
The Arbor Day celebration typically runs from 9 in the morning until noon.
It will be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah, but see, I was concerned about parking, so I wanted them to get there early.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the goats, since there are people inhabiting those islands, and are we going to have some sort of ordinance or something in case these goats are assaulted in some way, or if there's a
Well, there's law
barbecue
that
going
protect-
on?
There's laws that protect animals, any sort of animal
Okay.
cruelty
It's a no-
that would
no
occur.
Well-
fire zone.
Yeah, no,
And there's, in the goats, part of what goes out there is you also have a shepherd with them that oversees or tends to the herd while it's there.
Eric. Eric can be the shepherd.
Bill, I have a question in regards to your information on the damaged buildings. What constitutes a damaged building, and would that be inclusive of burnt buildings,
It would be any,
infrastructure
it would
code
be any
violations?
damaged city property, and a typical example would be a railing at the roundabout that gets hit or smashed or
Okay.
damaged. The idea would be to make sure that we have Public Works is notified of it, and that we have a crew out there within, I believe it's 15 days to remove whatever the damage is out there, so it doesn't appear to be just a blighted city piece of property.
For example, the lot home where it was tagged recently?
No,
Something of that
wouldn't.
nature?
Well, we would try to get that painted over as quickly as possible. I mean, this is not about repairing property. This is about removing damaged property that's sitting there,
Right.
because oftentimes we can't get to the repair or do the proper repair within the 15 days because the materials just aren't available. This is to, the best example is the roundabout with the railing that seems to be always rolled up and balled up there. It's removing it so it's not as
Unsightly.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to say something about the restrooms at Bedrock, too. I worked on that, built that actually with my father in 79, 80, and the only part still standing is the stonework. Councilmember Smith, Shepherd Smith.
In addition to what Bill was talking about with the 10 to 4 for the Arbor Day celebration, but we're talking about SPI quite a bit here, Sierra Pacific in Oroville, and they're going to be donating Right Tree, Right Place to be given away at that event. So there's going to be free stuff to be given away. So if you want some free trees for your yard that will be donated by Sierra Pacific, show up to the Arbor Day Festival and a host of other things that are going to be happening as well. So just wanted to kind of connect those dots.
Okay, Ruth, you gave us everything you had? Tom, thank you. Dave, welcome back. Dave Ritchie, Esquire.
Thank you very much. I don't have anything else to say, but just thank you.
Okay, well, we're glad to see you. Thank you. Leo?
Yeah, just a few things. One thing is the OPD remodel. We just got the contract squared away on that. We'll be starting that very presently within the next couple weeks, which is pretty exciting. Additionally, the lower Wyandotte culvert replacement, we're finally up on that. Contracts have all been issued on that. We're waiting for signatures back. We should be working on that by the end of the month, is the hope. We have a kickoff meeting on the 23rd. Additionally, Sam, one of the other city attorneys, is supposed to be coming up, and we're supposed to be looking at a playbook for the receivership program with the code enforcement, kind of going to the blighted properties on how to get that going and ramping up, making a more robust process to actually get some closure on some of those and hopefully get them removed and we lien the property and whatnot. But there's a certain way you got to go through the process to make sure you can actually follow through on that when you get there. Additionally, we have 5 CIP projects totaling about $5.5 million that will be out to bid by the end of the month as well. So we're pretty excited about that. Busy spring going on, and this summer should be quite a bit. So instead of hopefully complaints about how the roads are feeling when you're driving on, we'll be getting the complaints that we're working on the roads everywhere in town. So I think we would like to get that one instead. So anyway, pretty exciting.
Thank you. I want to comment on the roads and that because I take a lot of hits on social media. There's a very small group, 2 or 3 people that over and over, but I noticed that when those areas get fixed immediately, they don't ever bring that up. So I would like to bring it up that we have an excellent team here who, when something, and they're working diligently regardless of something being brought to their attention. We're aware of the situations and conditions of these roads, and we work every day on these things. But when they bring something up, this team responds diligently and expeditiously. And I would like to bring that up because we never seem to get any comments on that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that would be Wade and his crew out there. They really get to
Yes.
it. And we're constantly looking at the way we're doing those things to make sure they last longer. The patches of the roads that's always tough. The potholes are tough to deal with. You kind of go out and there's the quick fix of getting the cold patch in there, but then some of them need to be cut back farther and going through that. So we're looking at the way we do them with our standards, and also thanks to your leadership and getting more staff available, they're able to take the more time and do those things for the long haul, and that really helps out quite a bit too. So thank you.
Absolutely, and I'd like to remind the public too that there is a map that is available for the scheduled repairs for this year. We have nearly $3 million in repairs to the city roads this year alone, and there is a map available at City Hall, and anyone can access that map at any time. Chief?
Yes, sir. It's a couple of things. Police Department did a combined operation with alcohol beverage control on Friday night where minor decoys attempted to buy alcohol from 28 establishments in the city of Oroville. Unfortunately, 5 sold it to them. But another part of that was where our school resource officers, under the direction of our SROs, other decoys, minor decoys, went into 13 tobacco establishments and attempted to buy tobacco or vape products. Unfortunately, 2 businesses sold to them. All 7 were issued citations, and it was before the ban took effect. So it occurred on Friday night, if you've seen that media release. Additionally, there's, although we're not able to fully put them on the street, the POP team is currently engaged in their first operation they're doing right now. And so they're out there, and there'll be more to come on what I haven't got the stats of how that went, but they've been out with Department of Corrections since noon today, and they're going until 10 tonight. So it's just, when you see it, they're not fully going full-time yet, but it was a chance to get that team out there and do an operation. So it's their first one, so we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Chief. Really appreciate all your efforts. Dawn?
I do have departmental reports. For the Parks and Trees and Streets departments, just a few things to touch on. In the last 3 months, with the hiring of the 6 employees, the staff between those 2 departments has doubled to 12. With that, they've been able to accomplish the planting of 146 trees. Alleyways are being cleaned. 72 feet of sidewalks have been replaced. Approximately 300 potholes have been filled, and approximately 50 regulatory signs have been replaced. Additionally, they've started street sweeping full-time, and numerous loads of illegally dumped trash have also been removed from the industrial area. So that's thanks to the Measure U dollars for that department. For the sewer division, they are continuing their ongoing sewer system condition assessments, their sewage pump station functional checks and maintenance. For the fleet and the fleet maintenance division, they're beginning their 90-day bit inspections, which are the basic inspection terminals, which is the Class A and Class B trucks, their roadworthiness and safety inspections. And for the electrical division, they are beginning their street lighting and traffic signal repairs and maintenance that's ongoing, but they're starting that again. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson?
Dawn, is there a schedule of street cleaning maintenance? Is it ongoing throughout the city, and specific areas have specific scheduled dates?
Yes, but I do not have that schedule in front of me to provide you, but I can provide it.
All right, thank you.
Correspondence? Does anyone wish to comment on that? Having none, this meeting is
Mr. Mayor? If we could, we need to adjourn this meeting to 2 hours early for the next city council meeting on 3/17. So if majority of the council members choose to meet with the demographer on that day, they can.
3 p.m.?
3 p.m. will be when we would, it's going to be strictly as a workshop to meet with the demographer from 3 until the regularly scheduled time.
So this meeting is adjourned. The next meeting will be on March 17th, 2020, at 3 p.m. for council members, 5 p.m. for public.
Everybody's invited at 3 p.m. if they'd like to work with the demographer.
Everybody's invited at 3 p.m. So 3 p.m. on March 17th, 2020. Thank you.
You would make a great shepherd. On that letter for the Jan, are there specific things? Yes.
Linda, Linda.
Are there specific things on that that specific sponsorship before signing, or is it
I thought you were asking me to sponsor something.
Yes, you understand that for integrity. Sorry for saying that. 12 million lives.
That's kind of her, like,
So I guess I can walk away and let you guys talk about it too, but. You also weren't at the meeting, so I mean, there's. Mill it, but that was the only reason. I was gonna send out. Find out if Jordan. It happened at the last meeting, so as soon as I get direction as to if you're gonna.
Can you give me tomorrow? Just give me tomorrow.
So all of these are done where, yeah.